There we go. Welcome to this week's BTO Talk. You see, we had an interesting intro. We are playing around with our technology as well. Great to have you here on the BTO Talk on generative AI. My name is Michael Alf, calling from beautiful Lisbon in Portugal, and working really with all kind of organizations and individuals on their GenAI enabled transformation, and doing a few other things like a huge event next week, which we might talk in a bit in a moment. But I'm here today with my partner, Markus.
Hi, Michael. Yes, hello, everyone. Marcus here from Singapore, just returning from the Middle East, and I am a professor for B2B marketing at the National University in Singapore and a co-partner at Beyond the Obvious. Yes, and we are helping small and medium-sized organizations to get their game up in generative AI. Michael, any news? You have been to a kind of event in Lisbon yesterday, something about connecting the two red bridges.
Yes, yeah, there's an interesting, well, you might know, if you know Lisbon, you certainly know San Francisco. Yeah, both have a very similar red bridge. Yeah, so this famous red bridge. And when you go to Lisbon, you will see, that looks like San Francisco. There is obviously a reason for that. And this company or this organization is connecting the ecosystems of both cities, Lisbon and San Francisco, both tech cities. Lisbon is a leading tech city in Europe, especially around Web3, blockchain technologies, but also more and more AI. And yesterday there was an interesting guest from San Francisco presenting on a beautiful terrace outside with a view on the Tajo, the river, and the sunset. I mean, just a perfect setting. He actually made this funny joke, said, if you step behind me and just take photos the whole time, I can't blame you. I would do the same. That beautiful. Anyhow, so he was talking, so he's a ex-Googler and a founder now of an AI company. So he shared some insights from San Francisco and the GenAI developments, which of course is, to summarize, it's a hot topic. And it's kind of, there's a critical view into some of the challenges. So the whole bias challenge, the challenge of the cost. So one big challenge is indeed the cost of these LLMs are kind of relatively high. So the question then is, what's going to happen in the future? Will it still be available even for free or at a small fee? I think that's where the jury is still out, I would say. But the companies need to resolve that problem, and not only by taking on extra money, like Uber did for a long time. So utilizing and burning basically the money of the investors in the hope that it's increasing the value at some stage. So that was a critical discussion, and a few others as well in terms of where's the real value. And I think that's what we also see in our conversations, but also here in the live, is where is this real value of generative AI and which part is only curiosity. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the key ones.
And that's interesting because we are focusing obviously on you as a small and medium-sized business or a large company in the future, maybe. So we believe it will remain affordable in the future. It's not that you have to put aside huge budgets for Gen AI. The earlier you start, the better, Michael, right? We always say that. And I just had a full week in the healthcare sector, actually in the health insurance sector. And there were a couple of colleagues from digital transformation, where usually Gen AI is kind of at home. And we had a very, very nice conversation about what they are doing. And the agreement was immediate like this. You need to start with the executives or the top of the company to train them to simply understand, Michael, right? What is Gen AI? You don't have to become an expert. They don't have to start prompting, but simply understanding what are the opportunities. And this gentleman, in this case from Saudi Arabia, clearly said, look, we are playing around. As a matter of fact, Michael, they are not allowed to use ChatGPT in the company. They are not allowed to use Claude or any other Gen AIs in the company. So they are doing it where? At home. And then they are playing around, creating sandboxes like safe environments. They are starting to play with data, which really an IT security person wouldn't like to hear that you're taking the data out of the company and then you play around home. But that is how they bridge it. And then they create use cases. And he said the problem is not to have experts in GenAI. The problem, Michael, is if we are, in this case, a 1,800 people company, how can I train, let's say, 1,000 people in understanding GenAI? Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely. I think this is a really repetitive theme and topic which we see and we're having a lot of conversations. I mean, you mentioned health insurance. I had a legal in Germany, oil and gas industry. So really across logistics, we're really having a lot of conversations. Banking is another one. So where we see kind of, I mean, some similarities, a lot of similarities, and some obviously distinctions. Clearly. And one of the things clearly is a challenge. You have these pockets of experts, and then you have the vast area where people have a little bit of an idea. So it's not no. Everyone played around a little bit, but there's a huge gap there in this awareness. And then, of course, from a top, as a responsible leader, you take a caution, and go on the safe side more, especially in insurance and health and oil and gas
Banking.
and kind of these banking, absolutely, where kind of risk is expensive, and therefore you say, well, you must not use it, and so this is a problem, because there are others who are really embarking on that journey and are using these tools, and they will be ahead. So it's really kind of how do you take that from this kind of little area into the broad organization?
And it's much easier if you're a small company. I'm mindful that I just mentioned an organization with 1,800 people. That is not too small anymore. If you're 20, 50, or 100, again, it is super easy to train your 100 people in the basics of GenAI. We can help you with that. There are other organizations, a lot of courses available around the world. But we have the approach that you actually need to learn that within 90 minutes to 2 hours. And within these 90 minutes to 2 hours, Michael, we want them to have fun. We want them to play around, and we want them to create their own first little use case. And what we are doing there is using simulation, and we are just launching that very, very soon if you are interested. But other organizations embed that in a seminar. They go through the theory of GenAI, they explain maybe some more the technology. But be mindful, that becomes a bigger investment, Michael, right? Not only in time, but also you need to pay for these people to come to you and run this. So I guess learning from scratch and learning with real examples, Michael, that is the way to go, right?
Absolutely. I think this. I mean, you're the clear expert in the executive education space, with a lot of experience, and people, kind of adults, like learning by utilizing things in their environments, in specific scenarios, and less theoretical. So there's of course, with a new topic, there is some theory. We have to do some theory. But it's quickly moving into, okay, now let's do it, let's use it, let's put that into our context. And I think that's very important. That's why we go this simulation path, on the foundational level initially, and then we go both in terms of certain industries or verticals, and also functions, so that you have a simulation, for example, for HR. So you have a GenAI HR simulation, or you have a simulation for insurance. And the idea is really to have very specific use cases for this industry, so that you can learn these things and therefore be able, and that's the goal behind that, to contribute even more to this transformation. You mentioned that, it's in the digital transformation kind of chapter area. Is GenAI one major enabler or driver? And so therefore, everyone else needs to be capable and enabled to actually contribute to that transformation.
And you have examples where clients to tell you very proudly about how they are actually collecting and analyzing data. And then at the end they say, and we are using Excel for that, right? So can you give us an example? Can GenAI read Excel? can it do anything with it, for example? Because a lot of our listeners probably use Excel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, pretty much every company uses Excel. And I think we, in the very beginning of our lives, we talked about kind of the next version, using Airtable as a kind of excuse me, Excel on steroids, which can be a massive step forward in terms of who can change which cells and how does it look like, and a lot of other things. So that's a relatively easy step forward. What I saw is actually an interesting area in the hazard management, which obviously is super critical. And so they were using Excel, really nice with a lot of information, but it's still Excel with all the challenges. You can't really protect cells, and so you have a lot of risks actually in the use of this tool. And to your question, this is a perfect case for utilizing generative AI. How? Well, one of the things we have kind of one column was describing the different hazards and the situations, and then the risk associated with it. So let's say you have a scale from 1 to 5, and you say, well, this scenario is actually equals a 3, this one a 4, this one a 5, this one a 1. So and you have, I don't know, 100 cases or 200. Then you ask kind of the generative AI solution. I talk about solution and not ChatGPT, to analyze that, or you train based on this information. So you fine-tune the model for you so that you have a hazard model, your own hazard model, which is actually even local, which is even better. And then you come and you have a real life situation where someone describes this situation, even in voice, and then you have voice to text. Then the LLM kind of understands that and says, this is a 3.5 on the scale. And therefore, okay, the following action you have to take on now. So gather, update kind of instructions, whatever it is. So that's kind of a really, really interesting scenario, which most people don't think about, but it's such a huge area because you have everything in an Excel, you have everything in a structure in text, which is even better for an LLM.
So imagine, and I love this example, Michael, because it's super practical. Imagine you're running a workshop and an accident happens, and instead of entering it into an Excel sheet and then paperwork probably, and then a long process, you can literally ask your solution, which is a homemade solution most likely. This happened, on which scale are we, and should GenAI call the emergency number, whatever number it is for you, or get in touch with someone else. And this is done by other steps. We call them workers, for example. They are not real workers. Michael uses a whole army of workers, and they cost pennies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is one very, very specific example, which is kind of outside the typical ones you see, creating marketing material and all these kind of understanding contracts, and there's so many examples. This one is a highly relevant one, which helps tremendously because in this industry and others like logistics as well, hazard management is one of the top priorities, because the worst case which can happen, and I know that because I worked in logistics and we had a death in the company, an accident. This is the worst thing that can happen. If the CEO has to call the family and say, well, here, I'm sorry. So, and this is kind of high risk industries like oil and gas, like logistics, like a few others, transport, and so on. Transportation, some manufacturing as well, where you have this high risk. So therefore, this is really worth it. And the good thing is it's internal. So you don't need your customers for that. So which is always a risk. Because then you have kind of these models do things and the customers do things which they shouldn't do, and so on. Secondly, you don't have to go all in and say, now I'm relying only on my solution. It's like I'm learning, I'm checking, and at some stage I say, well, that really works well for these 20 cases, and these 5 I have to do myself. And this is where you want to be. You have an 80%, which is covered, your new tool and your solution, and the rest is really where you can focus on, and therefore you increase kind of that kind of safety level significantly.
Absolutely, and we talk a lot about marketing communications, and today, for example, health and safety hazards. But Michael, there are other industries and functions and verticals you hear which generative AI is topic number one. Which ones are they?
Yeah, I think that might be a nice segue into next week's conversation. So there's one when you think about industries which are text-centric, text-heavy. Yeah, so where everything is about writing. Yeah, they are primed for impact. I mean, it's almost everyone, but some are even more so. And one industry is the legal industry. Yeah, so some interesting conversations just today, both on the kind of solution provider side and also on the client side. Yeah, so for them it's a hot topic, and it's very clear. Law firms using GenAI will outpace law firms who are not using it enough. Yeah, because everything is text, from reading to creating. The whole work is text-based. Yeah, so therefore an LLM or SML, yeah, so the small version or whatever, or your version is highly relevant. So if you are in that space, reach out. You know, let's have a conversation. How to get started, how to continue the journey. It's not necessarily starting anymore. It's more continuing the journey and accelerating the journey. But we can talk about that a little bit more next week, huh? Marcus, what do you think?
Let's do this. Let's do this next week. Each week we will give you really practical examples from companies who are actually doing it. And again, let's remind ourselves that not your entire company has to become a generative AI company overnight. This is not the topic. What we always promote is start somewhere where you can see, get the low-hanging fruits. For example, customer complaint management, where a lot of stuff comes in written form, or even people put it in online, legal, insurance, and a lot of things like that. So this is the wrap up for this week. A lot of practical examples. Stay tuned with us. Join our community down here. You can see the link here. We will have a regular newsletter. You get access to all the videos. You also get a sneak preview of the products which we will launch. One of them will be the GenAI simulation, which is coming soon. Michael, final words.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, and see you next week again. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye for now.